This is Chill to Know.
Welcome to Chill to Know. We're diving deep into the world of Severance today. You sent in some really interesting stuff, and it looks like you're ready to break down all the details and hidden meanings of this show.
Yeah, it seems like you're really wanting to explore the depths of Severance.
Yeah.
And what I find really fascinating is how dedicated the show is to creating such a complete and believable world. The sources you've given us give us so many ways to look at it.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot to work with here. In-depth analyses from Think Story and Karsten Rundquist on YouTube, and IGN Recap to get us up to speed on Season 1. And then we have that really intriguing dance performance from the Season 2 finale, a theory video for Season 3 from Jeremy Eisenfire33. Oh, and for some laughs, we've got some deleted scenes from The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. That's quite a range, right?
It really is. It lets us look at the show from all these different angles, from the little details to the big impact it has on the viewers. And of course, where the story might be going.
Exactly. Our goal today is to put all these different perspectives together and find out what's really important about Severance. Its attention to detail, how much the audience loves its mysteries, and where it might go next. And we want to do all of that while making sure your time is well spent. All right, so let's get into it. I think one of the first things that really grabs you about Severance is how much thought seems to be put into every single visual element. Think Story really peeled back those layers, didn't they?
They really did. It makes you wonder if anything in this show is just an accident. It's not just about making a visually appealing show. You get the feeling that everything you see is carefully chosen to support the main themes. Like, think about the very first line, "Who are you?" and how it connects with the title of the Season 2 finale, the We Are.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider how important identity is in Egan's philosophy, right?
Right.
Do you think that maybe the show is using these bookends to point towards a deeper exploration of the self? Looking at it from both an individual and a collective point of view.
That's a really fascinating thought. And then there's this idea that keeps coming up, Lumen as a sort of hell. The first episode is even called Good News About Hell, and then we see Hello Hell written when Helly first gets to the severed floor.
It's pretty direct, isn't it? It's like a metaphor for what that workplace is really like.
It is, yeah.
But do you think that sense of unease that we always feel in Lumen is just a side effect? Or could it be intentional, like a planned part of the whole severance process itself?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, what are Lumen's real goals here? Are they really just trying to create a clean separation between work and personal life? Or is there something, darker going on?
Right.
Is that sense of discomfort being used for a specific reason?
Yeah, and it's not just in the dialogue, right? The set design itself reinforces this feeling of division.
Think Story pointed out how the snow in the parking lot literally divides the space. It's like a mirror of Mark's severed existence. And then his car is placed right between a red car and a blue car. It's such a powerful visual, a perfect representation of his divided self.
It is. And then you've got this whole red and blue color scheme going on everywhere. It's like everywhere you look, you see it. Mark's fish, his house, his office supplies. It's hard not to see it as a reminder of these two separate realities.
Yeah.
Kind of like the pills in the Matrix or those two opposing sides in Alice in Wonderland. It makes you wonder, do you think viewers consciously pick up on all of these visual cues? Or do you think it might be more subtle, working on a subconscious level to really drive home the themes of the show?
I think it's probably both, right? I mean, some viewers are definitely going to notice those recurring patterns. But even for those who don't, seeing those contrasting colors all the time probably contributes to a general feeling of, duality and tension.
Oh, definitely. And then there's the color green. That's often linked to sickness, right? Which seems really appropriate for the kind of unsettling work they're doing in macro data refinement.
Yeah.
We saw it in Jane Egan's prototype chip, and even in Helly's gala dress. What do you think that means?
Oh, that's interesting.
Is it just a coincidence? Or is the color green linked to something deeper, like maybe the origins of Lumen? Or some kind of corrupting force within the company? Is it purely symbolic? Or could it have a more concrete meaning that hasn't been revealed yet?
It really makes you think about Lumen's early days, and what their real intentions were with the Severance Procedure.
It does.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the characters. Think Story pointed out some interesting things about their backgrounds. Like, Miss Casey was a teacher specializing in Russian literature, and Mark was a history professor. You can't ignore the irony of Mark losing his memories, right?
Not at all.
Since they both had an academic background, could that mean they knew each other before? Maybe they worked at the same university or something. A place that Lumen might have been targeting.
That's a really interesting idea. And all those little clues about Gemma, too. Cobell stealing the red and green candle, which reminds us of Gemma's crafts, and Mark instinctively molding clay at the tree where Gemma supposedly crashed her car.
Right, yeah.
It's like they're trying to trigger some kind of recognition in him. And Cobell, her conflicting statements about her mother, saying she was an atheist and then a devout Catholic, just adds to the mystery surrounding her, doesn't it? And that quick shot of the hospital tag for Charlotte Cobell at her shrine.
Yeah.
It makes you think that Cobell has a very personal connection to Lumen and maybe wants revenge.
Oh, for sure.
What do you think is driving Cobell? Is she just trying to get even? Or is there something more complicated going on? Maybe even a misplaced sense of loyalty to Keir Egan's beliefs?
It feels like a very twisted kind of devotion, doesn't it? Like, she believes in Keir's ideas, but thinks the current Lumen is doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And then we have Irving with that black paint that keeps showing up. The connection between his Outie's obsession with painting and the creepy black goo in the severed workplace is so powerful.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a visual representation of his subconscious mind leaking into his Innie's reality. And finding out that Carol D worked in MDR before PD, it's like these little hints are showing us a much bigger interconnected history within Lumen, a history we're only just starting to understand. Did these kinds of subtle character links stand out to you right away?
Absolutely. It's those little details that make the world so rich and believable, you know? They make you think that there are all these other stories happening just beneath the surface. And then there are the paintings, like Keir's Taming of the Tempers, showing those basic human emotions, anger, joy, fear, sadness, and then seeing those same emotions acted out by the dancers at the waffle party. It makes you wonder if Lumen's culture is really based on Keir's teachings or if it's all just a carefully crafted system of control.
Oh, definitely.
And don't even get me started on all those goats at Devon and Rickens. It just reinforces that feeling that in this show, nothing is random. Every detail has a purpose.
Oh, yeah, totally. And PD's map, too, with labels like Coil of Doom and Team Building, and even those mysterious houses with "some people might live here" written on them. It really expands our understanding of Lumen. You know, it's not just those sterile office spaces, it's so much bigger.
Right.
And the theory that Miss Casey might be living in the perpetuity wing.
Oh, yeah.
Which actually lines up with what PD said about a place where people never leave. It's a pretty creepy picture of how much control Lumen actually has. What about the Egan family? We hear about Ambrose, the black sheep, and it seems like grandfather probably refers to Keir.
Yeah.
It feels like we're only just starting to learn about this really powerful family. And the fact that the word cure comes from the Gaelic word for dark one, that's pretty chilling, right?
Oh, yeah.
Does that tell us something about the origins of Lumen's supposed mission of healing? Is there something darker underneath it all?
It definitely adds a layer of, I don't know, almost mythical darkness to the very beginning of Lumen.
Right.
And those black license plates on Mark and Irving's cars.
Right.
With that Latin phrase, remedium hominibus, which means a cure given to mankind. Feels pretty ironic considering Lumen's supposed medical roots. It's like a constant reminder of their stated purpose, even if it might not be entirely true. And Miss Casey mentioning Irving's dog, Radar.
Oh, yeah.
That feels important too.
Yeah.
It's like she has these fragmented memories of her life outside of Lumen. And the fact that she's only awake for short periods of time makes that theory about her Outie being in a coma more and more likely.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that huge, seemingly empty severed workspace, combined with James Egan wanting everyone to have a chip implanted, it definitely suggests a really expansive, maybe even terrifying vision for Lumen's future, doesn't it?
It does.
But it seems like they're facing some pushback from the outside world, like politics, what with Helena's connection to Senator Arteta. Even the name of Devon's birthing retreat, Demona, means divine cow. It all feels so carefully chosen, you know? Like it all has some deeper meaning. And the parallels between that painting of the courtship of Keir and Imogen at the Ether Factory and the dynamic between Helena and Mark, it's too obvious to ignore. And even something as small as Pip's Diner being named after a former CEO, it's like these details aren't just background noise, you know? They're adding to the story.
Exactly. It's all part of this intricate web of connections in history. And then you've got those key moments and twists that Think's story highlighted. Like, remember Irving getting scolded for saying, "Okay, kids, let's find out what's for dinner" in the first episode.
Yeah.
And then he says the exact same thing later on. What do you think that means?
I don't know.
Is it a sign that his Innie's waking up in some way? Is it a glitch in Lumen's control? Or is it a repeating loop in their programming?
So many possibilities.
Well, I know, right? And Dylan, finding the cat o' nine tails during that weird waffle dance?
No.
A direct link to Kier's virtues. Pretty disturbing imagery there.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful connection.
And then finding out that Milchick's milkshakes, which seemed like a nice gesture, were actually just a PR stunt.
Right.
It immediately makes you question everything, doesn't it? It takes the small act of kindness in the workplace and reveals this layer of corporate manipulation.
Definitely. And the old technology. They say it's to prevent hacking, but it also creates this strange, almost nostalgic atmosphere that contrasts so much with the advanced world outside.
Yeah.
It's a really clever juxtaposition.
And the fact that the Lumen handbook is available in the outside world as the Lysington letters, it's like they're blurring the lines between the show's world and our own.
They are, yeah.
Even the prizes for finishing 100% of your files.
Oh, yeah.
Like Dylan's caricature showing him all muscular and stuff. It's weird, right? It adds to that unsettling, almost absurd workplace culture.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that sign that just says Severance Compatible Attire. It's a tiny detail. But it says so much about how much Lumen controls every aspect of their employees' lives.
Yeah.
And the statue of Kier Egan protesting severance.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's so ironic, it's almost funny.
Oh, yeah.
And the way they frame PD's head in the shots to show his mental state deteriorating.
Yeah.
The visual storytelling in this show is so powerful and subtle.
Oh, totally.
What about those water drop pins that Natalie, the PR person, and Miss Casey wear? Do you think they're just random accessories?
I don't know.
Or could they mean something more? Like maybe these people are connected in some way, or they're more deeply indoctrinated into Lumen's culture.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then there's that really bizarre moment when Dylan is told to sit on Kier Egan's actual bed after the waffle party.
Oh, yeah.
It feels really strange, doesn't it? Like almost intimate in a creepy way.
It does, yeah. Cobelle's living space, which looks more like a prison cell, and her shrine with that photo from the Myrtle Egan School for Girls, it just reinforces the idea that her whole life is consumed by and dedicated to Lumen, maybe even shaped by Lumen since childhood. Mark's date at Gerhardt's, which is owned by another member of the Egan family, just highlights how much influence this family has. And then we see all those seemingly catatonic, severed workers in the security room.
Yeah.
And the casual mention of other Lumen facilities. It really makes you realize how big and powerful this organization might be. And then there's the fictional state abbreviation PE.
Oh, right.
It's like a hint that we're not even in our own reality, that we're in some slightly altered version of it.
It is. All of these elements work together to create a world that's incredibly detailed and deeply unsettling.
Yeah, for sure. And Karsten Rundquist pointed out that this attention to detail is a huge reason why people are drawn to the show. He compared watching Severance to watching Rocky. At first, he thought it was a bit slow, but then he got completely hooked by the writing and the deeper themes. I think a lot of people who've seen Severance can relate to that, right? It's a show that slowly draws you in.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people felt the same way. He also said that season 2 felt more prickly because it introduced so many puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
And that made viewers crave answers even more.
Do you think season 2 was more complex and mysterious than the first season?
I definitely think so. Season 1 felt more self-contained, like a mystery with a clear focus. But season 2 broadened things significantly. It asked a ton of new questions and expanded the show's mythology. I think the writers did a great job wrapping things up in the finale without explaining everything away, though.
Right.
They kept that sense of intrigue that makes the show so captivating.
Yeah. Rundquist also said he missed that strong sense of camaraderie we saw in season 1 between the original MDR team, Mark, Helly, Irving, and Dylan. It makes sense that they were separated for most of season 2 because the plot demanded it. But it's undeniable that something was missing.
Right.
That short but powerful reunion they had in episode 4 was a real highlight for a lot of viewers, wasn't it?
It really was. And I think because the characters felt so isolated in season 2, those moments of unity in the finale were even more powerful.
Oh, for sure. And what about Rundquist's observation that Mark felt kind of passive, even like a non-character, for a big chunk of season 2?
Wow.
Until the graduate ending, of course.
Yeah?
It's an interesting point. Do you think it was because Mark was dealing with all those fragmented memories and the confusing nature of his severed existence?
Maybe. It's possible that his inner turmoil made him feel less active in the story until he was forced to make those big choices in the finale.
What did you think of the stylistic choices in that final episode?
Oh, yeah.
The shift to a more cinematic look and those sudden crash zooms.
I thought they were super effective in amplifying the emotions in those final moments. The switch to a film-like quality during the escape scene made everything feel more urgent.
And it almost suggested a move towards a more real, less controlled reality outside Lumen. And the crash zooms added so much impact to those cliffhanger moments. Rundquist was really impressed with Britt Lower's performance as Helly, too. He praised her for her strong presence and sincerity throughout season 2.
Oh, yeah.
And Dylan's storyline, especially the simple but powerful connection between his Innie and Outie, really tapped into the heart of the show's themes.
It did. And then there's Milchick. We see him evolving, maybe starting to change his loyalties, or at least feeling a stronger connection to the MDR team. It's a fascinating and still kind of ambiguous development. He's such a mysterious character in Lumen's hierarchy.
For sure. It sounds like Rundquist felt that the season 2 finale was so powerful that it overshadowed some of the earlier parts of the season, but it definitely made him excited for season 3. He did say he felt like the show lost some momentum in the second half of season 2, though. What about you? Did you feel that way?
I can see where he's coming from. Each episode in the latter half of the season had its own great moments and revelations, but it did feel like the main story was deliberately building up to that explosive confrontation in the finale. And that episode that delved into Gemma's backstory, while it was beautifully made and gave us some really important information, did feel like a bit of a detour from the main plot.
Oh, yeah.
But it all paid off in the finale, so I think it was justified.
Yeah, totally. And that brings us to the really in-depth analysis of the season 2 finale and all those fascinating season 3 theories from Think's story and Jeremy Ice and Fire. The idea that Cold Harbor is not just a room, but also represents new consciousnesses that were created for Gemma, like to compartmentalize trauma, is mind-blowing.
It is, and those 25 different rooms, each with a higher level of trauma, designed to test how strong the barrier between the Innie and Outie really is.
Right.
And the ultimate goal, which is ethically really questionable, to completely sever trauma from a person using a chip implant. It's such a crazy and disturbing idea.
It is. And the interpretation of the macro data refinement numbers as a doorway into the mind of Mark's wife, and those clusters potentially being connected to cure Egan's 4 tempers. Whoa, frolic, dread, and malice, which are seen as the fundamental building blocks of consciousness. And then there's Kier's belief that if you can control these tempers, you can control everything.
Right. The world shall become but your appendage. It's a pretty scary and deterministic philosophy.
Oh, definitely. And the fact that the Cold Harbor room has that crib that Mark built, there's this theory that if Gemma takes it apart without remembering the trauma associated with it, that means they've achieved their goal and both their Innies will basically die. The stakes are so high.
They really are. And the fact that Mark seems to feel Gemma's assigned numbers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a theory that these new consciousnesses are kind of like blank slates at first. So Lumen can basically imprint anything onto them. It's a fascinating idea. And the fact that there are failed files in the Cold Harbor data, like Cello and Chick-fil-A, shows us that the Severance Procedure is still experimental and unpredictable.
Right, right.
And then there's that detail about Gemma's winter coat, the same one she was wearing when she supposedly died.
Yeah.
It stands out because everyone else in Lumen seems to be wearing 1960s clothes.
Yeah.
Maybe it has something to do with James Egan's childhood. It's just another layer of intrigue. And the fact that Cold Harbor doesn't seem to be a real place.
Yeah.
Do you think it could be entirely metaphorical? Like representing the inner space where grief and trauma exist?
That interpretation definitely fits with how much symbolism the show uses.
It does.
And then there's Mark's decision to save Helly instead of Gemma in those final moments of season 2.
Right.
Think's story brings up some really important questions. Where do they think they're going to go? What's motivating Innie Mark to act so selflessly? Why would he give up his newfound freedom for someone who seems to be his captor? And Innie Mark's cynical view that reintegration is probably bullshit really resonates with the show's themes. And then there's the idea that Cobell convinced him to save Gemma by saying that he'd be killed anyway. It's a pretty bleak scenario.
It is. And that new painting, The Exalted Victory of Cold Harbor, which shows Mark and Helly as the last refiners, the creepy animatronic Kier Egan mannequin, and that Waffle Party pop-up card.
Yeah.
It's such a strange and unsettling image.
It is. And Helly saying goodbye with, "See you at the equator," which is a clear reference to the severed fool that divides their Innie and Outie worlds. And Mark's feelings for Helly, which don't seem to make sense, and that song, The Windmills of Your Mind, playing during their escape, a song often linked to forbidden love and the complexities of consciousness. And the way the visuals shift from digital to a more traditional film style during their escape. Maybe that's supposed to represent the contrast between the artificial Innie state and the organic Outie state. And then there's that sudden freeze frame ending, which leaves us with so much uncertainty. Even the sad song that plays during the credits, Go Down, Old Hannah, which is an old prison work song, symbolizes how oppressive Lumen really is. It's all so carefully made and open to interpretation. Jeremy Ice and Fire had some particularly interesting theories about season 3.
Yeah.
Like, what if James Egan admits that he doesn't really love Helena, but he sees something of Keir in Helly? Maybe he'll try to switch them, allowing Helly to live in the outside world, maybe even with Innie Mark, while keeping her under Lumen's control and basically shutting down Outie Mark's consciousness. And then there's the possibility that Devon and Cobell will team up to save Gemma, the idea of 7-3 being about Gemma trying to save Mark, or even an Innie uprising led by Dylan. Those are some exciting things to think about.
They are. And then there's the mystery of the goats. They seem to be connected to some kind of cult ritual related to Keir's principles. And Lauren from Memelian's Nurturable is clearly disturbed by the killing.
Right.
We also see an identical room, which makes us think there are other people being subjected to the same procedures as Gemma.
Oh, wow.
The idea of the goat as a guide, maybe leading Gemma through Lumen's maze-like hallways, even to places we haven't seen before, like the ones on Petey's map, and that creepy death altar shaped like a baby. And then there's the theory that Jane Egan and a young Miss Cobell had a child together, and that child is Mark, which would explain why she cares for him so much even though he was abandoned.
Right.
That would definitely add a whole new layer to their relationship.
It would change everything. And those details in the Exalted Victory of Cold Harbor painting, the anagrams like Dear Eganii generated and Wintertide Dear Twin, Dylan's Outie saying that he wants to be like his Innie, his decision to stay at Lumen, the break room being empty. It all suggests that some big changes are happening at Lumen. And the step-by-step breakdown of Gemma's escape, focusing on those specific transitions between Innie and Outie at the elevators and the stairwell, it really highlights how controlled the Severance Procedure is. We haven't gotten official confirmation of Season 3 yet, but with so many unanswered questions and compelling storylines, it seems pretty likely that the show will continue.
It does. And let's not forget the humor we got from Stephen Colbert's deleted scenes from Severance. It's a nice change of pace after exploring such a dark and complex story.
Oh yeah, it is. His jokes about how Severance is critically acclaimed while Ted Lasso isn't, and his observations about all the different Apple charging cables. And then him playing Steve C., this clueless new refiner at Lumen. It's funny how he keeps getting everyone's name wrong, calling Irving Herb, Mark S. Marcus, and thinking they're at Lululemon instead of Lumen. And then there's the facial hair Friday bit, and him confusing Lumen with Scranton from The Office.
Oh, right.
It's also absurd, but it also highlights how strange and unsettling the Lumen workplace is, just in a more comedic way.
It does. And his failed attempts to say the Lumen Credo with different accents, all the references to The Office, that out of the blue who's afraid of Virginia Woolf joke, and his awkward musical dance experience set to All Star. And then he asks that simple but deep question, do Innies have outies?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he gets fired for stealing office supplies. But he thinks he'll see everyone again on Monday, calls his boss a great leader, and then tops it off with a "that's what she said" joke.
It's hilarious.
It is. It's pure comedic relief, but it cleverly uses absurdity to emphasize how dehumanizing and bizarre Lumen's corporate culture really is.
So we've taken this deep dive into the world of Severance, exploring its symbolism, the theories it has sparked, and even a humorous take on it all.
The show is packed with detail, which is a big part of what makes it so appealing. It encourages viewers like you to actively try to figure out its hidden meanings and connect the dots. With so many unanswered questions and compelling characters, we're left with a lot to think about. And the theories about Season 3 suggest that the story could continue in a really dramatic and revealing way.
What stood out to you the most from this deep dive? What questions do you still have about Lumen, the Severance Procedure, or the fates of Mark and his colleagues? This is really just the start of a much bigger conversation, and hopefully it has sparked some new insights and a desire to explore the mysteries of severance even further.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe next time you watch the show, you'll notice all those subtle red and blue details.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe you'll start to think about the things in your own life, the everyday objects and routines.
Yeah.
And wonder if they hold deeper meanings, maybe even subconsciously severed meanings.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into severance. Until next time.
See you then.